It's 7 p.m. on Monday, December 9th, 2024, and I will call this special City Council meeting to order. If Mayor Pro Tem would lead us in the flag salute. And then for the record, all council is present this evening, and we have Director Madden, Planning Manager Stallnecker, Interim Director Robeck, Chief Hernandez, and City Clerk Tricia Summers. Moving on to the consent agenda, council, in front of you and then also emailed to you earlier today, we had a small revision in the minutes. So under citizen comment, the three people that commented, we changed their comments from comprehensive plan update to that they made comment on development code. So that's the change that was made in the minutes, and the packet was updated online as well. So if I can get a motion to pass the consent agenda?
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Whalen and seconded by Councilmember Peretti to pass the consent agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried 7-0. It is 7:01, and the City Council will now go into executive session per RCW 42.30.1101I to discuss the legal counsel representation, the agency litigation, or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequences to the agency. I'm going to anticipate that this meeting will last 30 minutes. And just to note that Attorney Andrew Soming will be joining us virtually for this meeting. The mics are on? Okay. The executive session is concluded and adjourned at 7:45 PM. And so, council, we do have 4 items on our agenda this evening. The first one is on page 19 of your packet. It is for the dedication of Olson Park. I'm wondering, Planning Manager Stallnecker, if we should just open up the floor for discussion, or if we should do an action or a motion to open up the floor. How's council feeling? Do you want to have a discussion?
Can we wait for Dave?
Sure.
I can do a brief,
Well, yeah, overview.
oh wait, but I could do a brief overview for the record. And then, yeah, my feeling is that probably just discussion, because it's a new.
Okay. Is anyone opposed to that? Okay. So I will turn the floor over to Planning Manager Stallnecker.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So the item, the city was approached back in 2019 by the Donna F. Johnson Living Trust. They are the overseers of the plat that's up on 23rd and Alder. Long story short, they have made an offer to the city that they would like to dedicate Track X and Track A early. Track X is proposed to be the right-of-way access to the area. Track A is proposed to be the park. And so they have made an offer to the city if they would like to take those tracks are both on the plat, set to be dedicated to the city on January 1st, 2030. They would like to get rid of those tracks early. They've requested, so they are liking to dedicate it now, this year, at the end of the year. They had requested in exchange $11,585.22, which is the last 5 years of property taxes that they have paid on those tracks. Their reasoning is that they started talking to us in 2019. That's when they felt that they no longer wanted to. And so basically it's before council to discuss whether we are interested in taking those tracks early, and if council is willing to exchange that for the $11,585.22.
So we're going to go out of our norm and open up the floor for discussion before a motion is made. Would anyone like to start the discussion? Councilmember Whalen?
Just a question. They've been willingly paying taxes on this property since this agreement was made with the city of Milton. This is nothing new. They've been paying taxes every year, correct?
I personally don't know what agreement you're referring to, and I don't know about the taxes. I mean, we do know they have been paying, they're not
delinquent.
they're not delinquent, yes.
So they've been paying taxes on both of these properties willingly from the trust, if that's where it's coming from. And we're now how many years into this agreement? Since 2006?
So the plat, yes, the plat was adopted in 2006.
And the roadway, both plats were accepted, correct? Track A and Track X.
Track A and Track X were accepted as part of the Olafson Estates plat.
And they've been paying taxes since that time.
That's our understanding.
That's our understanding. I think the greatest relief would be to turn the tracks over to us at this particular time, stop that hemorrhaging of money on taxes. But I don't see where we're obligated to consider paying back taxes that they've already paid. They've been willing to and going through with this since 2006. That's just a thought.
Okay. There, Councilmember Peretti?
Okay, so I just want to clarify that I have it correct in my brain on this, is that in this trust, it's been developed that there's this piece of property that has been trusted that in 2030, it would go to the city of Milton for a park. That is a fact at this time?
Correct.
Okay. And so that trust then also then signifies then a deed or a title action on that property. So a title is registered with the county, and on that title, it currently says that this property cannot, that this property in 2030 would go to the city of Milton. Is that correct?
Correct. On the screen this is the wording exactly from the plat that is recorded. Tract A shall be owned and maintained as open space for the private use of the living trust of Donna F. Johnson until the year 2030, at which time it shall be dedicated to the city of Milton for use as a park.
Okay. And so, and I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but for myself, they are just asking us, hey, we'll dedicate it to you 5 years early if you pay us this amount of money.
Correct.
And so we have just the decision, do we want to pay this amount of money and get it now? Or do we want to wait until 2030 for the trust to fulfill its letter?
That is the offer that they have given us.
All right, thank you.
Councilmember Cedar?
Yeah, I actually really appreciate that. So don't think that was for nothing, because that simplification really helps me. I think there's a lot of competing interests that I hear. I feel like this is a simple transaction of either we get this property now for $11,500 and some change, or we get it in 2030 for nothing. I mean, I'm fine. Like when we talk all the times about wanting more parks. I think it makes sense for us to get it. I think there's some risks in that, maintenance of the park. I'd like to hear from Public Works on what that looks like so we can know if we're going to be hurting ourselves or costing more down the line. But I'm certainly interested in getting over 3 acres for $11,000 when we're talking about getting a similar size plot for over $1 million elsewhere in the city. I don't know if that. So that's where my head is. I think this is at least worthwhile to think about. And sorry, I was kind of inviting, if I could just hear a little from Public Works about what's happening. If we did do this, is it feasible to make this a park without us costing development of Track X? Like, could we make this a walking path at least for a few years until those other 2 tracks are developed and they build a road in? And then a sub question is actually, would we have access on foot to Alder?
It can be done. As far as what are the costs to develop, a passive walking path, something along those lines, I would say that it's not only the construction of the path, but it would also be fencing, any kind of buffer, landscaping that would be required. My direction at the moment would be to go put this property through a master planning effort, get an overall site concept, and in that master planning effort, you might be able to identify low-cost threshold improvements, low-cost improvements that the city could move forward with. We do have a significant amount of park projects in our backlog right now with Hill Tower and Triangle, and it's unique timing, but 5 years is about the amount of time in my mind where we would be ready to develop a new park. Once Hill Tower is complete, over the next 2 years, we'll go through construction. We may be able to start master planning sooner than that, but as far as developing access improvements and having a usable space, 5 years is a likely time window.
So if I could just ask a quick follow-up there. So let's assume that we received the park in 2030. Would we experience, would we experience the same process at that time? Like all those same costs would still be applicable, right?
Yes, They would have the same costs, but they'd be in 2030 prices. So there's a benefit there to start development or start planning early. We just, with our current staff and project backlog with Hill Tower and Triangle improvements, I didn't see with our current staffing model how we would start that master planning effort before 3 to 5 years is a likely time window. And then regarding maintenance, this is unirrigated land. Typical maintenance for 3 acres, it would be about $500 a month. So there would be that cost there. We could try to mitigate that, but if we shopped it out, that would be a likely quote that we would get from vendors.
And then last thing, and then I'll cede the floor here. Chief, I actually wanted to hear from you, if you don't mind. Chief, I might, Chief, if I may. If we were to pick up this, I don't know, have you had any incidents on this property? I know it's undeveloped right now. Okay. Do you harbor any concerns? Like if the city were to own it? Okay. Thanks.
No, and like I said, like, we've had the discussion before that I'm an open air or open lands guy. I mean, where I came from, Jefferson County, the council or commissioners there aggressively pursue and continue to pursue open areas to preserve for public use. And so I think as the density comes in around us, it makes sense that we try to make our amenities available to our members of our community within walking or biking distance and not have to leave this community, because we have become a little sanctuary for the most part. And we're actually seeing people come to Milton as a destination location for the amenities that we have, because we're comparatively a lot safer than most cities. And we are actively pursuing multimodal transportation in the city. So we're becoming more and more user-friendly for families and elderly and people that have disabilities to be able to move about the city with disabilities and so forth. And like I said, not to get on my soapbox, I go down the trail and you see skateboarders, wheelchairs, bikers, walkers, runners. And it's, to me as a police chief, it's like, this is a great thing to see a cohesive community out enjoying our community and not being afraid. So long answer, but I support 100%.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Strader?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed with the lack of detail that we've been provided, but I'm hearing that there could be some litigation put forward. I'm not really. I've looked at the contract and the living will, and I think it would be detrimental to go against the woman that set this up, Donna Johnson, and her family. She specifically said she wanted this place for a park, and the agreement was not to go to the city until 2030. They could do it earlier, but now they want to change the game and want money for it. So I don't see the upside to that, and especially if we would not back down from this agreement. We should honor her agreement. Whether her grandchildren want to do that, I don't know why that is, but she's the one that set this up, her and her husband. So I'm not for this.
Councilmember Strader, just for future reference, what additional information are you disappointed that you didn't receive?
Well, I would have liked to have seen the agreement that was entered, the living trust, the will should have been provided so we could look at that. The map is kind of fleeting. It's hard to read. I'd like to have seen it blown up bigger. And this is it's not a simple thing because of the lots that are involved. X being that section where it's going to give the right of way, and could be complicated. I think that could have been a lot more information.
Okay, I appreciate that comment or feedback. Mayor Pro Tem first, and then Councilmember White.
Thank you. So do I understand, in your opinion, that even if we got it now, you have enough on your on your plate right now with parks that you really couldn't put any energy into develop or even looking into planning, designing? Or did I misunderstand?
With current priorities that are set, that is an accurate statement that we wouldn't have time. But if council revises those priorities or at the direction of the mayor, we would of course make time.
Okay, I'm just trying to determine if would that 5 years, if you didn't, had adequate time to really put quality time into designing and developing it, then, we could wait until 2030 to then start working on that land and create that park.
That
Just
is
trying
that is
to-
a potential outcome.
Right, because you don't want to get it and then go, well, we can't do anything, about it or with you yet because we're working on in these areas currently. And
Councilmember White?
This is an interesting situation. However, all the information that I've gleaned thus far, it would seem as though the city is not, though in the grand scheme of things, $11,000 is not a lot of money to obtain this land. We're going to obtain it for free as a result of the prior agreement in 5 years, being that we're not going to be able to develop it in the next 5 years anyway. I don't think it's worth spending that money. I think that we can make an offer that we'll take it now if they just want to give it to us, and they'll save on the property taxes for the next 5 years. But just, I don't see any benefit to the city or the citizens to receive it 5 years early for the money or without the money, but we can offer them to let them give it to us early to save them the next 5 years of property taxes. And then we'll just sit on it like we were planning to anyway until 2030, and then work on developing it then.
Okay. Any other, Councilmember Whalen?
In discussions over this property and so forth, if we were to pay the number so indicated on the 11,585.22, can we take possession of the property when that check is cashed? No more 5 years waiting. Can we take it over? Will they surrender the property upon receipt of the check? Because if it does, we can go in and make a bit of a park out of it. We can maintain it, and we can have it. But it's almost, I almost feel blackmailed on this. They knew what they were doing. They're telling us that somebody in the beginning who may have been a signee on this may not have been competent. That's a little hard to prove now after so many years. And unfortunately, some of these names are no longer with us. It's almost extortion in my mind. It's almost extortion that they didn't come sooner in my mind when they recognized. Did they just recognize the last month or two that somebody may not have been competent enough? I'm finding that to be problematic. And I don't want to see us lose this property. I don't want to see us pay for a gift that was a gift to the city. I don't want to see the city spend a lot of money in the future to rectify this. Simply enough, if the answer was pay this now and it's now yours, is at least part of a plan. I don't know what it's going to be, the payments are going to be in the taxes for the next 5 or 6 years. Everything's going up fairly significantly. Are they going to come back the day before we're supposed to receive it and say you owe us another $5,000? think some resolution could come to fruition, but it's going to cost us money. It's going to cost us money to pursue this legally. So I think a true understanding of what that potential cost to the city just to manage this. We have costs right now with our attorneys on other things that come to a problem. So I suspect that in another 4 or 5 years, it's probably going to be about another $4,000. I don't know what the property taxes on this particular property is, the two properties, but it's fairly significant. Is this, we're going to pay more, or are they projecting property taxes for the full duration till the year 2030, that this 11,585.22 includes those years? Or does it just include what they've paid up till now?
So their proposal, after negotiating back and forth, the one in front of you is to pay the taxes that they have paid from 2019 to current. That's where the $11,000 comes in. It's what they have already paid in those 5 years. And then if council wants to agree to what they have offered, we would take ownership by December 31st, 2024. So the end of this month.
So pay this and you can have it now.
Yeah. And I just, again, Angela and I are just bringing, our planning manager Stallnecker and I are just bringing forth a proposal from a trust. I feel that it's fair to tell you that when I have met with Lee Johnson, the first time was 2019, as I've expressed to you. At that time, he told me he approached the administration 8 years prior to give the land to the city. And he was told at that time by that administration that he, the trust, he's pretty much the one paying for the tax at this point, and is my understanding. But him and the trust had to develop part of 23rd and Track X. And they knew they couldn't afford it, so they stopped pushing to give it to the city. And that was, when he met with me that first time in 2019, he said he expressed wanting to give it to the city back 8 years prior to that. So I don't think it's fair to say that they just decided all of a sudden. I think that I can't speak to their previous administration, but everything he has told me, and I believe he's being truthful, is he felt he couldn't give it to the city unless he developed 23rd and Track X himself.
And that development would be the next owner's responsibility?
This map doesn't show it, but I believe there's 2 plats that they are gonna sell currently. The first 3, the rest of the plats are part of the Johnson Trust, but they've been given to their children. But there are 2 plats where that cursor is that they are planning on to sell. Those 2 plats would be the ones that need to develop Track X, not the Johnson Trust Fund or the Johnson family.
So that potentially doesn't travel to us once we do take it.
Correct.
And again, just for clarity, have you checked the taxes paid on this particular property? Is this taxes all the way back to 2006? Or is this number here projected to be up to 2030?
The amount that they've requested is 2019 through 2024. 19 through 2024.
So that's 5-year taxes?
Correct.
So we got another 4 years. If we submit to this and so forth, they keep the property for another 4 years, it's going to be another $11,800 and so what dollars.
That they would have to pay, yes.
They would have to pay, and I suspect they would come back to us and ask us to support that too. But they're going to lose the property if they don't. So this is only for 5 years of taxes.
Correct.
I'm surprised they didn't wait another 3 years. Sorry.
But again, at 2030, it becomes ours either way. So it's, again, it's their offer to give it to us early for a reimbursement of the last 5 years is their offer.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments, questions? Councilmember Cedar?
I'm going to make a motion. I just asked you to listen carefully because it's going to be different than the recommended action. I move to approve the dedication of Tract A and Tract X of the Olafson Estates plat to the city by no later than December 31st, 2024, in exchange for no payment from the city.
Second.
Sorry, I'm just writing this down real quick. Okay, so it has been moved by Councilmember Cedar and seconded by Councilmember Peretti to approve the dedication of Tract A and Tract X of the Olafson Estate plat to the city by no later than December 31st, 2024, in exchange for no payment to the city.
By the city.
By the city. For no payment by the city. Okay. Thank you for that correction. Councilmember Cedar, do you want to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just noting, I'm prepared to spend the money, but I think I hear the points and that they're well received that, hey, we're going to get this anyway, so let's do them a favor and relieve them of the property tax burden for the next 5 years. I think it's a reasonable counteroffer, given all the interests we have here and our likelihood of prevailing if this were to proceed to some kind of contested issue. But I would like to get the property earlier so that we can rack and stack our priorities for public works differently if we think that's appropriate when we revisit our parks plan in the coming years.
Okay. Councilmember Peretti, did you want to speak to your second?
Yes, thank you. I agree. I think that's a win-win. It's a win for them. They're not paying taxes for the next 5 years. I think it's a win for the city because then once we become ownership of it and we're not paying anything to become ownership, we don't pay taxes and that for it. But it also puts it into the bailiwick of now we can look for grants and other things because we actually have the property. And that's a big driver for looking for that free money out there to develop open spaces and parks and that. So I think it could work.
Hold on, Chief. Are there any council comments? Councilmember Whalen?
And it's just a question. What happens to Tract X if we buy this, if we purchase this, if we receive this property for purchasing these back expenses that were incurred on it? Tract X, the road, what becomes our obligation to do with it before this becomes an open space and so forth? What additional costs come?
I don't believe that we would be required to do anything with it. Like it would be similar to other unimproved right-of-ways that once Lot 7 and 9 choose to develop, they would be required to, we would put the burden of development of Tract X on the developer to complete that road, similar to what we would do with other subdivisions. So the lot above it and below it is Lot 7 and 9. The way it's written is that they can't build houses until they would develop, they would pay for the frontage, they would pay for the road development so that they would have access to those properties.
And just out of curiosity, I probably I don't remember this from the past. On the Alder Street area, how much access is that particular dog leg?
I don't know if I can see 34, 35, 34 point,
34, 35
Yeah.
feet wide?
yeah.
So that's a regional access.
Yeah, it's meant to be a path access.
I'm sorry.
It's meant to be a pathway access.
Yes, but it could accommodate larger than just a pathway if you needed to access the property.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments? Councilmember Schrader?
As Public Works Director commented that we are not prepared for that, their load is filled. I think we could set a lot more better priorities than to develop this park. I hate to see the city take a position of backing down from the agreement that these people agreed to. I think that sends a wrong message. I think that we should wait and see where it goes from there. We don't have any plans to develop this park yet, and I think we're putting the horse before the cart. So I am completely against this purchase.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. If I may call it an amended motion. I completely agree with the amended motion. They've already dedicated the land to us, and if they're willing to give it to us 5 years ahead of time, and we're saving them, by doing so, we're saving them the taxes until 2030. So and the aspect too of once we have that land, then we can really start going for grants, kind of getting a little bit more of an idea of how we want to develop the park. So I think the amended motion makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilmember White, do you have a comment? No?
I'm ready.
Oh, you're ready. Okay, I see that. It is an action item, though, so I do need to see if there's any comments from the audience. Please make sure you state your name, your city, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Ms. Schrader, can you wait just 2 seconds? Sorry, the timer is timed out. Sorry about that. Okay.
Just some thoughts that would the stipulation, so let's say a developer decides to wait it out and doesn't develop it, or they don't sell it. I know there's a stipulation that says in 2030 that if the X, I believe it says if X isn't developed by that point when we take it, then it will be developed and that cost will be borne by the lots 7 and 9. So is that correct? That if we do this, we will not be, it's not a way for them to not pay for the road. Because if they were expressing they couldn't pay for the road, I just want to make sure it's not that we're paying zero, if we're paying for the road, it's not zero. And also, and this is just a nominal thing, but if mowing, I think you said was maybe $500 a month, and then if you mow 5 times 5 months, maybe? I mean, it's a nominal cost, but it sort of offsets. We're taking over the mowing, they're not getting any money. It's kind of a, they're similar. It's around $12,000, and they wanted 11 something. So it seems like a fair thing, because the thing I'll finish with is what Donna Johnson has done and given to the city is an amazing legacy and to the community. And it's like, we're going to have something like Edgewood has with those woods. And it's like an amazing thing. So I'm sorry this is happening now, that may be in a way sort of tarnishing it now, but it doesn't tarnish anything about her and this park. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, this could have been developed, and she chose not to for a legacy. Gave her. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schrader. Any final comments before we take a vote? Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry. I told Chief he had to wait, so let me give Chief an opportunity to speak. I apologize, Chief.
Only thing is, I was going to encourage council that if they do amend the resolution, that they should at least stipulate, accept reasonable fees to prepare the legal documents to transfer said property to the city, so the mayor has that authorization to have those legal documents drawn up.
We don't even know if the trust is going to accept this offer, so I'm probably going to have to come back to council anyways, but this at least gets me in a direction to go back to the table. But I hear what you're saying. But I'm comfortable with how it's been motioned. Does anyone else want to amend it? Councilmember Cedar, go ahead.
I mean, I'm, to the extent that I would amend my motion to include reasonable costs and fees associated with the transfer, so long as there's not a payment to the estate. That,
Right. Yeah. Second.
It's supposed to be an easy meeting.
yeah.
Can I just say as amended? Or, yes, I can, okay. And we went through this last time, I did not research, but you seconded it, right, Councilmember? Okay. Everyone, you wanted to say something else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I really appreciate the comments that came forward from the audience here. Because the thing that sparked in my brain is that if we never had any of these conversations and they just came to us and said, hey, we don't want to wait until 2030, we want to give it to you today and at the end of this month, I don't know what anybody would say, no, we don't want you to do that. It's like, it just makes sense. It's like we would say, no, don't give it to us. It just, so it's like, yeah. I think with the amended motion, it's like, let's do it.
Okay. So before I say it, because I just want to make sure I say it correctly, the clerk has said no payment by the city except for fees, or you want to say not? Except for fees for transfer property to city? No, you want no fees.
If I may state the amendment, just give me just one moment and I will state the amendment in a little bit clearer language.
Okay. Are you going to type it for me, Planning Manager Stallnecker, on the screen?
I was helping Public Works Director Madden with his.
So this was my intention, and to state it in more clear language. The amendment would be added to the end of the motion to state, except for any fees and costs associated with executing the dedication.
Except for any fees or costs.
With executing the dedication. I believe that was what Councilmember Peretti had seconded in intent.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
title fees and all that crap.
Any questions? We're good? Okay. So we have an amended motion, which was moved by Councilmember Cedar and seconded by Councilmember Peretti to approve the dedication of Tract A and Tract X of the Olafson Estate Plat to the city by no later than December 31st, 2024, in exchange for no payment by the city except for any fees and costs associated with executing the dedication. All in favor? Oh, Councilmember Whalen.
And that statement does include the fact that receiving the check prior to next year, sometime in December 31st, the property is owned by the city of Milton.
The motion does not include any payment to them at all. So we're not paying them $11,000. The motion is to accept the property but not pay the $11,000.
I just wanted to be clear.
Okay.
Sometimes I don't hear everything.
No, I can
so I'll
understand.
ask the question.
Okay.
So we're going to hopefully become the owners of this on December 31st, but this payment of $11,585.22,
No, we're not going to pay the $11,000.
we're going to pay it. We're just going to relieve them of
We're going to offer that.
Burden in the future,
their taxes and so forth
Yes.
for the next few years.
next 5 years.
Yours.
Yes.
God,
Okay.
I just hope we make that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Carried 6-1. So we will go back to the table and we will keep council updated on the decision that the trust makes. Okay. Did I give you your paperwork back? Okay. So moving on to our next item this evening, it is on page 21 of our packet. It is Resolution 24-1980 for initiatives and referendum. I apologize. So council, this topic was originally brought up by Councilmember White during his council report on March 4th, 2024. With the support of council, it was then brought to the council retreat on August 7th. And so now I'm bringing it back to council for potential adoption of Resolution 24-1980. In the agenda item, I won't read it verbatim, but I've explained what the powers of both the items are. But I just want to say that if council passes this resolution, it doesn't go into effect right away. To proceed, you have to adopt the resolution, which declares the intent to provide these powers, and then the resolution must then be published in the newspaper within the city for at least 10 days after passage. There is a 90-day window for members of the community to object to this resolution, and if that's the case, then it will go to the ballot. If we don't receive any objection in the next 90 days, then we will come back to council with a ordinance to adopt. Would anyone like to make a motion? Councilmember White.
Yes, I'd like to move to adopt Resolution 24-1980.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember White and seconded by Councilmember Strader to adopt Resolution 24-1980. Councilmember White, did you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. I was approached by a citizen with a question about how would they run a referendum if they wanted to. I didn't know the answer, so I had to research the issue, and then I found that cities don't automatically, or residents of cities don't automatically have that power unless the city councils of those cities vote to allow it. And so that's when I brought the issue forward, and I appreciate the support of the rest of the council that we've been able to move forward with it. And I'm happy that if this passes, that our citizens will have the ability to run initiatives and referendums if they so choose in the future.
Councilmember Strader, do you want to speak to your second?
I want to thank Councilmember White for bringing this forward. I think it's a long time coming. It's something that I believe the citizens, it's a tool for the citizens to have access to bring things forward, and I think it's a good thing.
Any questions, comments, concerns from council? Okay, it is an action item. Are there any comments from the audience? Okay. It's been moved by Councilmember White and seconded by Councilmember Strader to adopt Resolution 24-1980. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried 7-0. Moving on to our next item, it is a discussion item only. It's on page 25 of your packet. I will turn the floor over to Interim Finance Director Robeck for a third quarter 2024 budget report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We'll be presenting the third quarter report, fund by fund, as usual. But please let me know if you have any questions or need any additional information as we go along. The baseline for activity in the operating funds is 75% of budgeted amounts, and we'll be addressing any significant variances from this target as the funds are presented. Starting on page 27 with the general fund revenues are higher than budget at 84%. Taxes, however, are slightly below budget at 67.2%. As of November 30th, however, taxes are looking better at 90%, which is on track with the annual budget. So they are slightly lower in this third quarter, but we saw some pickup in October and November, and that looks like it's going to continue into December. So that's great news. Licenses and permits are higher than budget with some large building permits issued, and charges for services are higher than budget due to better than expected planning and development fees. General fund expenditures are slightly lower than budget at 67.8%, with administration and finance and legal services are negative amounts due to the indirect cost allocation. These categories will likely change to positive amounts as we approach the end of the year. Other central services is higher due to annual expenditures, including insurance, memberships, and dues. As a result, this category has not increased much since the last quarterly report. Non-expenditures is a negative amount primarily due to timing issues. This category contains several clearing accounts with expenditures distributed throughout the year. Those were the basic notes I had for the general fund. Does anyone have any questions on the general fund before we move on? Okay. On the next page, 28, the Asset Replacement and Capital Reserve Fund. I don't have many comments. There's not much activity since the previous quarter. I just will note that the current expenditure activity in this fund includes the purchase of police vehicles. So moving on to page 29, the street fund. The street fund looks good with revenues at 81.2% and expenditures at 69.9%. And the rainy day fund on page 30, as well as the drug seizure fund on page 31. Neither of those funds I have any comments on just because there's not a whole lot of activity. The Criminal Justice Fund on page 32. The Criminal Justice Fund looks good with revenues at 75.3% and expenditures at 66.4%. Jail costs are trending slightly higher than budget at 79.8%. However, law enforcement expenditures are trending below budget at 64.9%. Does anyone have any questions on that one? Okay. On the next page, 33, the Community Events Fund. Revenues and expenditures in the Community Events Fund primarily represent Milton Days activity. Revenues look good with charges for services and miscellaneous revenues above budget. The interfund transfer will be entered at the end of the year. Expenditures look comparable to the third quarter of the previous year as well. The next, the Real Estate Excise Tax Funds 1 and 2 on page 34 and 35. These look really good with revenues in both those funds already surpassing annual budget amounts. On page, the Traffic Impact Fee Fund on page 36 is the same. This fund looks good as well with revenues already surpassing annual budget amounts. The Parks Impact Fee on page 37. The Parks Impact Fee is currently trending below budget and the previous year with decreased revenues. However, no transfers out are budgeted in the current year, so this fund will continue to grow. The Capital Improvement Fund on page 38. This fund looks good with several large projects moving forward quickly as we approach the end of the year. Most of the budgeted revenues in this fund are project related, so you will see these revenues increase as the city incurs more project expenditures. Larger expenditures in the fund to date include expenditures for the SR 99 Porterway intersection, miscellaneous and TIB street overlays, the City Hall retrofit, and sidewalk missing links projects. The Electric Utility Fund on page 39. This fund looks good with revenues at 77.3% and expenditures at 61.5%. Interfund transfers are trending slightly higher as a result of higher revenues. On page 40, the Electric Capital Improvement Fund. This fund looks good with revenues above budget at 83.6%. Larger expenditures in the fund to date include expenditures for the meter replacement project and the miscellaneous cable replacement project, which is nearly complete. Moving on to the water utility fund on page 41. The water utility fund looks good with revenues at 81.9% and expenditures at 61.8%. And once again, in this fund, like the electric fund, interfund transfers are trending slightly higher as a result of higher revenues. On the next page, 42, the Water Capital Improvement Fund. This fund is moving forward with revenues currently trending below budget at 67.9%. Interfund transfers are slightly higher as a result of higher revenues in the water utility fund, but capital contributions are slightly lower with less than expected system development charges. Larger expenditures in the fund to date include expenditures for the new deep well and miscellaneous well rehabilitation projects. I don't have many comments on the water asset replacement fund on page 43, as there's just not a lot of activity. The stormwater utility fund on page 44. This fund looks relatively good, with revenues only slightly below budget at 73.7%, but higher than the previous year. Expenditures are slightly below budget as well at 63.2%. The Stormwater Capital Fund on page 45 is moving forward with revenues currently trending slightly below budget at 63.4%, primarily due to lower intergovernmental revenues. Larger expenditures in the fund to date include expenditures for the citywide ditch and culvert and invasive plant species removal projects. I don't have any comments on the Stormwater Asset Replacement Fund on page 46. There's just not a lot of activity in that fund. The Electric Asset Replacement Fund on page 47. This looks good with revenues at 82.6%. The largest expenditure to date in this fund is the budgeted purchase of a new bucket truck. The Vehicle Repair and Maintenance Fund on page 48. This fund looks good with expenditures below budget at 54.6%. Revenues in the fund are based on internal work orders and will catch up to expenditures as we approach the end of the year. And lastly, on page 49, the Information Technology Fund. This fund looks good as well with expenditures below budget at 70.9%. Revenues in this fund are based on cost allocations and posted to the fund in equal amounts each month. Does anyone have any questions, concerns?
Okay. Thank you, Interim Director Robeck. Moving on to our last item this evening, it is on page 51 of your packet. It's Resolution 24-1981 for surplus of the community building. I will turn the floor over to Director Madden, and then following his review, I will need a motion to open up the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The item before you tonight has been the point of discussion throughout 2024. Staff felt it was time to bring it forward again. In the past, this project was brought forward, and this is the community building, which is across from the parking lot next to the 9/11 Memorial. From 2019 to the end of 2023, the building was leased from the city by East Pierce Fire and Rescue. After December of 2023, they vacated the building, and it has since then been vacant. The item was brought forth to council in 2019 through multiple different meetings. At the end of the conclusion of those meetings, a determination was made to lease the building. That building was leased until 2023. At this time, the building continues to deteriorate. None of the major improvements, of which in 2019 there was $66,000 of improvements identified. With the inflation calculator, we can determine that it's approximately $90,000. It would be the cost of those same improvements in 2025 dollars. Given the building's deteriorating condition, lack of financial return, declaring the building surplus at this time is being brought forward. If approved, the surplus designation would lead to the sale of the building. In 2019, we received multiple quotes. We've talked to 2 interested parties, and their price, due to the continued deterioration, is the same. $5,000 is what both parties offered the city, which is the same price as 2019. Discussion regarding what this land will be will continue throughout 2025. It's been the point of discussion at both council and park board meetings. I did bring this forward to park board in November, and they unanimously endorsed the surplus of the community building. At this time, we would like council's feedback and decision on how to proceed with the building itself, not the land, but just the surplus of the actual structure.
Councilmember Peretti?
I move to approve Resolution 24-1981, declaring the Milton Community Building as surplus and authorizing the disposal by appropriate means and legally permissible methods.
It's been moved by Councilmember Peretti and seconded by Councilmember Whalen to approve Resolution 24-1981, declaring the Milton Community Building as surplus and authorizing disposal by appropriate means and legally permissible methods. Councilmember Peretti, did you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. I think just financially, it's prudent to kind of move this direction because of the age of the building and the cost of maintaining and improving it to be in standards to be able to lease it and that. And I look at opportunities that we have for that piece of property for a lot of different things that could happen there to support the current park that's there. And so, it's, when I was working for the city, that was an issue, that building back then, that we dealt with all the time, and just the deterioration of it because it's not it's a modular structure. So I'm all for this.
Councilmember Whalen, did you want to speak to your second?
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thanks for this. It needs to be done badly. We've known for many years and so forth the lack of a prize. It's not a prize. When and if able to sell the building for a nominal cost. When that's done, I suspect the foundation will be covered, moved, removed, or they're not going to take the foundation. They're going to take the building off of it. So I suspect we are scheduling time for and expenses to, well, let's just say, grass that area underneath until we decide what we really want to put there, if anything. So is there something that's in the budget already, or do you need monies for that?
Yes, as you said, we would level the ground, apply erosion control. It is a fairly minimal cost, and we do have budget within our park improvement fund.
So you've already considered that
Yes.
with this and so forth. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns from council? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. Yeah, I know we've dealt with this in the past for sure. I'm glad to see this coming forward. I only had one person from the VFW at the Veterans Day ceremony come up to me and say, "Don't get rid of the building, the community building, because we could still use it." And I'm thinking, what do you know that I don't know? But yeah, it's to repair it is, it's not worth it. I'm interested to see what we can do with that land because there's so much that we can use that land for to help support the park. And it's plumbed, so you could, if nothing else, put in, a nice set of bathrooms or.
Yep.
See, the chief agrees.
Any other questions, comments from council? Councilmember Hall?
Yeah, I remember when this came up a it probably was 2019, and there was quite an attachment to the building at the time. I don't know, maybe it was the VFW, I'm not sure. And I was kind of against it, but now I'm thinking, why? What were we thinking? It makes sense. We need it for the park. So I'm excited to see what the plans are going to be.
Any other comments, questions, concerns from council? Any other question? No, I'm just joking. Chief.
I know that you were going to say this already, but we already allow the VFW to utilize the community building in exchange for services. So we still have a home for them, and it's here.
The activity center.
Yes.
Yes. They have an agreement. They meet here once a month, so.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments, concerns? All right. It has been moved by Councilmember Peretti and seconded by Councilmember Whalen to approve Resolution 24-1981, declaring the Milton Community Building as surplus and authorizing disposal by appropriate means and legal.
Mayor.
Yes.
This is an action item.
Yes.
I think you should invite public comment.
There's no public out there.
Oh, excuse me.
I saw you staring.
I thought there was someone still
No, they left. But I do
Excuse
appreciate.
me, I'm so sorry.
No, I do appreciate you having my back and letting me know when I may have made an error. So, okay, I'm going to repeat it just so we're on the same page. There's no one in the audience, so there's no further comment. It has been moved by Councilmember Peretti and seconded by Councilmember Whalen to approve Resolution 24-1981, declaring the Milton Community Building as surplus and authorizing the disposal by appropriate means and legal permissible methods. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried 7-0. This is a special meeting, so we are not to discuss any topics not on tonight's agenda, but I thought before I adjourn, just make sure there's no clarification or questions on the 4 items we had. Okay, so seeing that all items have been concluded, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:47 p.m.